So we discussed how the people from various units were subsequently subsumed into the British Indian Army. Initially, it was confined mainly for the wheat eating North Indians, that was essentially the Brahmins and Rajputs of Awadh region and Bihar. Right now, there was a certain risk associated with it, with the Britishers discovered in due course of time. Now, until that happened, this was once the prevailing hierarchy in the British Army was. So now later on, the Gurkhas also came. Treaty of Sagoli, we have already discussed it. These things also happened. So how it actually proceed? Just a minute, we'll start with it. Okay. So what was the last line that we wrote? As the British Army as the British Army expanded, as the British Army expanded, it came to incorporate a variety of social groups, and a number of military traditions, and a number of military traditions which were accommodated in a careful balancing game. Underline this: careful balancing game. The Bengal Army remained predominantly high caste dominated. While the Bombay and Madras were more heterogeneous. From 1820s, there was an attempt to streamline the Indian Army. The purpose was to have a more rigorous control. On the army. The reforms within the army, the reforms within the army created discontent, among the sepoys, sepoys, among the sepoys. By 1840s, there was a growing discontent. Within the British Army, within the British Indian Army. The peasants and other groups joined army because it offered a lucrative career. This loyalty was ensured by army administration, by encouraging their religious traditions. The loyalty of army was important for the stability of Raj. The British Raj, actually, the company Raj, was important for the stability of Raj.
Previous line stated that it was streamlined, and the subsequent line states that they gave importance to the social.
Yes, they were balancing the two. Yes, no, not contradictory. They were ensuring that this balance is happening. If they bring too much of streamlining, if they do not respect the practices, then there is a fear of immediate backlash. So, to certain extent, these practices were they were allowed to practice their traditions as sacrosanct. But when it comes to the training part, the diet part, how to control your weapons and everything, these things were very rigorous. And these people who were working there, they had this feeling that we have been honored, we have been recognized, our valor has been recognized, right? They were heaped praises by their colonial masters. So they were like, I cannot be a namak haram, I'll serve my master. He is allowing me to do the things I wish. If my religion is sacrosanct to me, he is ensuring that he does not infringe upon that. Okay, so there was this very careful kind of balance that was maintained by the British. Indians were, of course, very naive to even recognize that. Okay. Anything else? Right? In the late 19th century, the army remained the most effective instrument of coercion. It was a guarantee. It was a guarantee for the British Raj against any kind of internal disturbance. Against any kind of internal disturbance. Now, why not police? Why only army? Now, don't tell me the army had better weapons and practices. No, that was not the reason. Then, what else? Not actually.
The army was being given more incentives than the police. They were more
Nothing to do with the incentive, the monetary compensation, or even you will say that they had a better variety of Kalashnikov rifle. No, there were no Kalashnikovs.
loyalty.
More than that. This loyalty was maintained. How it was maintained? The army people were insulated from the outer surroundings. The police were a part of the community. Police used to live with their family in the communities. Army people used to live in the garrisons. They were insulated from all kind of external happenings. No political opinion could be formed. They had no stand on any social issue. While the policemen worked in the same society, lived in the same society, 8 to 9 hours, maybe 10 to 12 hours, he was with the British. Rest of the time, he was with the family and the community. So, what was happening here? He was very much a part of it. He could not alienate himself from that. On the contrary, the army one, he was insulated. That's why he was more loyal. Right? He was kind of, remember, cave of allegory cave? Aristotle, something like that. He was carefully insulated from the outside surroundings. Okay, so write this: the police could not handle this situation as the policeman lived in the surroundings. As the policeman lived in the surroundings. Lived in the community, not surrounding, in the communities, and was more susceptible to social coercion. More susceptible to social coercion. The army, on the other hand, was quarantined, not the current wala, corona wala quarantine, was quarantined in garrisons. GARRISONS. What is garrison? Camp, army camp, you can say. Garrisons spread across India. Spread across India, deliberately kept at low level of literacy. and carefully insulated from any political influence. Okay, is it all right? So the three instruments we saw, three institutions: judiciary, police, army. Now, if a question comes that how did the British, how did they actually consolidated their hold? How did they further flourish after winning everything? Because India was so diverse, India had so much of fragmented, so much of social fault lines. How did they actually conquered everything? Through which mechanism? This is what you liked, right? We also saw many MCQs in the notes. I have asked you to tick them or underline them because they are important. Now, another institution, the last one, the civil services. The civil services, please write about them. The Indian Civil Service. The expansion of empire, increased the responsibilities of governance and required an efficient bureaucracy. Trained in Indian languages and laws. Lord Wellesley came to India in 1798. Fort William College in Calcutta ऐसे देखो at Fort William College in Calcutta, the civil servants took 3 years of training. They were drawn from various presidencies, they were brought into that college and they were trained upon it. 3 years of training before getting their postings. No, Indians as well, but hardly few. Before the Charter Act, there were no Indians. 1800 and before that, there were no Indians. Now, exclusively British. All of them, yes. But they were trained. And you know, again, a very interesting development will come here. See how imperial masters were not sure. They were always susceptible to anyone, even their own people. Why? Because what was happening here, at Kolkata it was opened. The civil servants before their training, today also you have a training at Lavasna. No one objects to it because yes, it is for the betterment, a good understanding that a bureaucrat is supposed to have of various intricacies of Indian socio-economic, political, administrative, every aspect they teach you. They teach you administrative law, many things they teach you. What was happening that this college was closed. Why it was closed? 2 reasons. One, Wellesley lost favor with the East India Company. Second thing, East India Company thought that maybe these servants who are civil servants who are trained here, they will have more loyalty towards Calcutta than London, which means they will undermine the crown for the East India Company here. London, Calcutta, I don't mean the Indians. The British establishment, there are two centers of power, right? One at the London, the other at the Calcutta. So they are like, no, they should subscribe to this one rather than the local one. Alternate power centers should not emerge. Sovereign is one, right? Right. This college was closed as Wellesley lost the favor of the court of directors. Wellesley lost the favor of the court of directors and also feared that such a training program might result in shifting of loyalty of civil servants from London to Kolkata. Change the para. The Charter Act 1833. The Charter Act 1833, what it did? Brought competition into the recruitment. So what kind of competition it was? Was it an open competition? Then come on, we have discussed it. So tell me. Anyone could take that exam? Then? But it was a limited competition among the candidates nominated by the court of directors. The Charter Act of 1853, here it got open. Yes, the Charter Act of 1853 introduced open competition. And the civil services exams in India were open to where write like this, where what you wrote, the civil servant, where cut it, now were now to be recruited through an open competition, which was for all natural born subjects of Her Majesty. Natural born subjects of Her Majesty. The examination was annually held in England. The examination was annually held in England. After 1813, under Warren Hastings, a gradual process of Indianization of civil services. Indianization of civil services started. Within brackets you write subordinate services, not the higher echelons of bureaucracy. Just a minute, I have a question online. I'm seeing it here itself on my YouTube. Krishna has asked, sir, can we say that Heather rose rank because he was aware of the ongoing situation? As in, please elaborate it. How did Heather rose rank because he were aware of ongoing situation? Whom are you connecting Heather Ali to? Heather was working for Wadaya dynasty. Where was the British? Where was the East India Company here? Until it times you can write, ask something. Someone ask. Natural born subjects of Her Majesty. Subject and king. Subject, we are not subjects because we are in a republic. Where you have a monarch, there you have a subject. Cannot say you are not the subject of President or the Prime Minister of India. We are the citizens of this country, right? It's not a ruler-based democracy, right? So subject means natural born subject. Wherever the rule of the empire is, everyone living there is. You don't have to be born in London or England. You can be very well sitting in Hyderabad, born after Battle of Plassey or maybe before Battle of Plassey or Buxar, but now that the territory has been occupied, you become a natural born citizen. You please repeat it because Heather was not working for the British. He rose in rank because he was with the Wadaya dynasty. He had this ability and he kind of dominated the kingdom. Now, Krishna has written, he rose from Wadaya guild because he knew what was going on and sepoy were not able because otherwise. Going on as in? You need to frame your questions in a better way. Going on, see what I am able to comprehend from your question is that he was aware of the ongoing situation. That time the situation was vastly different. Okay. And you cannot compare Heather Ali to what we are discussing now. Heather was against a limited dynasty, the Wadaya dynasty, which was a rampant of its past. Wadaya was there prevalent in medieval history, not in modern times in 18th century. right? So it was, of course, Hyder had the military ability, that is why he could assert himself, others could not. But not to be compared to what was happening with the East India Company and the sepoys. It's not comparable. Okay. Where were we? Okay, Indianization of, within brackets, please write this subordinate services. Yes. Now you write further. In 1870, a new provision was made. 70. Indians of the ability and merit. Indians of the ability and merit could be nominated to few provisions, few positions which was reserved for the Europeans, which was reserved for the Europeans. Indians chosen for such family were for, कौन होते थे, who could they be? Poor people, hungry people. Then no, they were the elites, the offspring of the prince, the kings, and who were very wealthy, very influential, such people. Yes. The Indians, क्या लिखा? Came from influential background. Came from influential background. Change the last Governor General that India had. Lord Ripon realized the importance of including Indian middle class into the administration. But his proposal was firmly opposed by the bureaucracy. Everyone, even from the lower rung, because they felt threatened by the prospect of sharing power with Indians. Finally, in 1892, the structure of civil services was reformed. Indians could enter the civil services Indians could enter the civil services through an open exam held in London. But their representation was low. 15% in 1922. Okay. The Government of India Act 1919 provided for the exams to be held in India. First exam, happened in Allahabad in 1922, Prayagraj in 1922. The era between 58 to 99 is referred as bureaucratic despotism. What do you mean by that? The will of the civil servants used to run the government. And this tendency diminished after 1919. By 1941, there were more Indians than British in the civil services. Okay. Okay, I said, you said now. 1941. It was, but that was a war era. Second World War was going on. So most of the efficient British civil servants, where were they? They were making efforts so that their country wins in the Second World War against the Nazis and the fascists. And naturally, after 19 so strong, Gandhi was yielding his non-violent sword everywhere. So pressure was on the British. More Indians were drawn into it. Almost 70 to 80% of bureaucracy was Indianized by that time. British knew that there is a numbered. Okay. It is actually the civil services that runs the country. Let me tell this to you. It is 100, howsoever strong a politician is. You know the first thing Prime Minister Modi said after to the secretaries, have delayed my reforms. You people didn't let me do what I wanted to. Now I will not let you do. I will not let you stop my things. It was actually a warning to all the thick-skinned babus. I remember Prime Minister talked about opening up of a railway university even before he became PM. In his election speeches, that there should be a railway university. You know, the sheer, Indian Railways is one of the largest employers in the world. The length and breadth of railways in India is unprecedented. Now with all inroads have been made into even the northeast of India, places like far-flung like Dimarpur, these places are having, Nagaland has an airport, forget railway station. So now it is ever increasing, the fleets are increasing, the passenger coaches are increasing. He said our trains, you see the speed, what is the speed of Rajdhani? The fastest train? It reminds me of Venkatesh Prasad. The fastest train is running at 110 and we call it the fastest train. Compare it with the fastest train of other countries, 500-600 kilometers per hour. You can drink a coffee, not a single drop will fall in those trains. PM said the coaches are so heavy. We need tailor. Why? I hope the metro is not. Of course, metro must be a modern state of art. Something very similar to Delhi Metro, I think, right? Entirely similar, I guess. That's the model that is replicated everywhere in India because Delhi Metro is a huge success. So you see the coaches there, they're not very heavy, so it can run smoothly. So it is the bureaucrats. What is the status of railway university today? We are still hearing about it. 7 years. How much time it needs to, people from railway board have been to other places to study the railways. Okay, they came, they analyzed, but still on ground it has not materialized because bureaucracy has always been status quoist. They are not willing to, most of them are not willing to do things the way government wants. So it is actually the bureaucracy which controls each and everything. The IAS lobby is massive. No one can do anything to them. Whatever lateral entry or whatever reforms, because they are recruited by a constitutional body. The recommendation is by the UPSC, right? So again, that's why it says that once the civil servants start performing, then the government of the day, whatever they want to, the government want to do, will actually get materialized. That is why so much emphasis on civil services. Everyone does that. Every government wants that. Okay. Understood this? Actually, I have to make certain adjustments over here before I take these questions. It is opened, it has opened on full screen. I don't know why. India hardly had any middle class during the British era. What difference would it have made? In terms of what? Which difference are you talking about? For civil services, for military, for entrepreneurs? Why don't you come to class? Where is he? Any idea? हैदराबाद में फिर क्यों नहीं आ रहा? Okay, okay, yeah. I remember this. He told me this. So, still within the city. Yeah, okay, in terms of having more civil services, see, even a small, like you have rightly said, that hardly had any middle class. Remember the development of cities like Bengal, Madras, Calcutta, of course, Delhi being one, the trade centers, a new middle class had already emerged. Of course, if you compare it with the remaining population, it was very less. But even that less was good. Everything boils down to the proportion, right? If we say that the population of India was 10 crore, right, and only 2% were middle class, what is the number? Round about 12 lakhs? No, not 12 lakhs, 20 lakhs. So it can be very less, but then this 20 lakh would be a significant number any day, right? So Indianization of civil servant has to start. Okay, of course it was very less, but in India even the very less is very high because of the sheer size of the population. Okay, the sheer size of the population makes it huge any day. And yes, if they were more into like what happened in 1941, in 1942, after 5 years we won independence. So of course they will, you will study this in terms of when we'll see these things like Rin Revolt, Royal Indian Navy Revolt. Last we will see that when we will end modern India. I think last class or second last class would be about Rin Revolt. Yes, these two. So there you will see that the Royal Indian Navy actually used to follow the bad diktats of the British. That's it. So all of you understood this entire thing. The instruments all of you have. Now these are the things that are not given in your factual books. You will not find these things in spectrum, right? Even in your, Bipin Chandra, of course he talks about these things at a very early later stage, and NCRTs have not given such analysis, but your exam is focusing on these areas. That's why we'll also go into that. We'll prepare the way UPSC wants us to prepare, not in bits and pieces, holistically. And that is how preparation should be done. It's not like you cram up 20 odd facts and then vomit it in your answer sheet. No. You need to understand the context. What else is the use of studying history? Right? There are very important lessons that are drawn from history, and those who do not understand it, they are condemned to repeat those mistakes. So let us try to understand everything in proper context, right? It might take a bit long, but then I am not in a hurry. And I don't guess any of you are appearing for the main exam this time, right? So what's the hurry with all of you? मेन का एग्जाम रहता तो अभी तो पूछ में आग लगी होती सबके, जैसे बाकियों की लगी है, आपके साथ वाले जो दे रहे हैं इस बार. So let us focus on conceptual holistic approach, right? Any questions here? So now let us start with something else. Krishna ji. ये प्रोजेक्ट पे आ जाएगा. प्रॉब्लम होगी तो छोड़ दो, अगर हो सकता है. He's Vijayam or Vijay? So you add M after every. Vijay Anna. Anna is prevalent here or in Tamil Nadu? Everyone is Anna. Then what do you call? What would you call Anna Hazare? Anna Anna. So Anna Hazare को क्या बोलोगे? Anna Anna. हाँ? क्या क्या क्या? And for girls, Anni. Akka. Okay. Like that's what Didi. And auntie? Tell me one.
If she is the sister of her father, we call her Atta.
No, any other random auntie, not sister or father. Any other random auntie. No Telugu word. क्या है? चाची चाची को क्या बोलते हो? So akka should not be pingy, right? Okay, some other time I'll learn these things. आ रहे हैं विजय. चलो, let us start until he arrives. Now we will see the multiple uprisings. As I told you that 1857 is the most well-known one. But apart from 1857, there are so many other mutinies that happened. Even before that and even kept on happening after that. So many people were up against the British. So we'll focus on that. Because in your exam also they have asked many questions they have asked in your prelims. And in your main you can always get that the 1857 revolt was actually a culmination of many revolts that were happening before that. So where do people lose marks? In such a question they will start describing 1857 revolt. It reminds me of my class 12 practical exams of physics. I was asked something, but I replied what I knew. Okay, you can see a famous interview also. I think 6-7 years before, a famous politician was interviewed by a famous anchor, and he kept on uttering 3 words: women empowerment. Don't name people, okay? So again it reminded me of my class 12 practical कि पूछो कुछ भी मैं वही बताऊंगा जो मुझे आता है. Okay, बाकी चीजें out of syllabus. So when you are asked how mutinies were built up that led to 1857 revolt, आपको उसके पहले के revolt की बातें करनी है. Okay, तो उसको हम देखते हैं कैसे क्या हुआ था. Start with write few words before we finalize this. After Battle of Plassey, year 17, ये तो याद होगा. The political control of East India Company increased and by the end of 18th century
क्लोज कर दीजिए वहाँ पर डिस्प्ले कुछ है तो वो क्लोज कर दीजिए सर सी कुछ बोल
YouTube आएगा तो वही ना जो यहाँ आएगा कुछ नहीं yesterday it was it was the anniversary of Birsa Munda. Alira. Hello. Heard of him? Who was he? From Jharkhand. Yeah, you go to Ranchi, the airport is Bhagwan Birsa Munda airport is there. So he was a tribal rebel against the British, and such type of he has been accorded a national hero status, and rightly so. He fought the British, and he also fought against those trying to suppress or dominate the tribals of those parts. So Sidhu Kanho, Birsa Munda, Sannyasi rebellion, Fakir rebellion, these are very, very important things. You write until we start. What you wrote? By the end of 18th century, the British emerged. The British emerged as the main power in India. As the company gained in political sphere, it became imperative to introduce and implement policies in the field of land revenue and to set up an administration implementation of such policies.
But it's after 764.
1760
After 1764, they will get these rights.
they are
Like after 1764, they will get these rights of land revenue and law and order.
yes.
But we have after that.
See, some attempts were already done even before, and there was no one who could stop them in Bengal, even after 57 revolt. विजय छोड़ दीजिए नहीं हुआ था हो गया हाँ सी थोड़ा कॉन्ट्रास्ट सही कर देंगे Can you read this? Then write. So, we were writing the third point that such policies created turmoil in Indian society. So, what kind of turmoils? Like you see the second last point, dislocation of socio-cultural, economic and political life of people. How? What change of?
Change of
Taxation system, the privileged were not so privileged, the subaltern were speaking. What is subaltern? Who is not mainstream. You write this. Actually, I can send this to you, right? No need to write it here. You just complete this slide. I'll send it to you in your groups. ये सही रहेगा ना, लिखवाने का क्या है, लिखते समझते वो है जो यहाँ पे नहीं है. फिर बंद कर दो. If you write it, let me know. We'll close it. I'll send it today itself in your group. अच्छा मिल जाएगा आज ही आपको आपके ग्रुप में PDF फॉर्म में मिल जाएगा. Just go through it, read it. Next day tomorrow we'll discuss it. It will make our understanding more accurate and our work also will be done in less time. और थोड़ा आपका भी ब्रेन यूज होगा ना. Let us go into the analysis rather than facts. Quickly write it down. Now this was not only because of the policies brought by the British in terms of administration or economics or legal or anything. It was also because they were ushering in many socio-religious reforms that actually kind of made Indians very, very angry. So reforms and rebellions, it should be like this. first led to the other. Okay. Earlier, East India Company said that we are not going to intervene. Let them do the way they want to do things. We will remain aloof. You manage your social, religious, cultural affair. We are only concerned with economic and political affair, the commercial affair. But as and when the empire extended, it became impossible to remain aloof. At some point of time, everything is mixed. Can the government of the day, the government of India, say that no, we are not concerned about these things. We are just concerned about budgetary target, fiscal deficit and revenue deficit? No. We want to fix the fiscal deficit at 3.5% of the GDP. They have to take into account the socio-religious, economic, every aspect of this country. Now it was becoming impossible. So they said, no, we need to intervene here also. Okay. Because these things are interconnected. Right or not? Nothing can happen in isolation. Everything is interconnected. And more so when it becomes all pervading. Now the Britishers are all pervading. Even the princely states have accepted their sovereignty, the suzerainty. So it's not like. Can you hear me properly? I think there is some issue. I hope, yes. Okay. So you're right about this. The earlier British policy was non-intervention. Non-intervention in Indian social matters. This is Warren Hastings. Hastings Orientalism. Hastings Orientalism was an attempt to learn about Indian culture. Was an attempt to learn about Indian culture and to use them in policy of governance, in matters of governance, you write, in matters of governance. The Asiatic Society of Bengal, the Calcutta Madrasa. There was one more, can you tell me? Where? Good. Now try to understand, if you get a question, something as a byproduct of Orientalism, will Fort William be an example of Orientalism? That would be very good. Everyone understood? The civil servants were trained there. Were they trained on Indian custom tradition? No, they were trained on governance, administration, economy, polity, right? Okay, so you understand the difference? these three you can, I think you have written it, I have mentioned this, I can recall. If you want, you can write it again. Utilitarianism began, made people, utilitarianism made people talk of reforms. So, utilitarians they talked of reforms, but they were also evangelists. They will talk about, they want that British should go and intrude, not intrude, but they should interfere. The evangelists wanted the British to intervene and liberate Indians. And the free trade thinkers wanted government intervention to free Indian economy from the shackles of traditions. Now this might sound contradictory, that how are free trade, but they are not wanting in their own economy, for Indian economy. They wanted government intervention to free Indian economy from the shackles, shackles, shackles of tradition, for free flow of trade. Okay. Macaulay had a contempt. Macaulay had a contempt for Indian education. You know what he said? Macaulay said this actually, he went on record saying that, because he was an Anglicist, he was not an Orientalist. He said that a single shelf of any European library is having more knowledge than entire wisdom of India and Arabia. You have heard it? Where? In NCERT it is, yes. So this is Lord Macaulay. And one shelf is having more knowledge than the entire India and Arabia, which means all Hindu Muslims religious gyan together, that will not suffice for one single shelf of European library, shelf of it. So that was what he said. He had a contempt for what you wrote, Indian. Okay. English education was favored by the Anglicist. Anglicist. In 1854, I think we didn't see this, right? Did we? There is something called Wood's Dispatch. Charles Wood Education Dispatch recommended the extension of vernacular elementary education was also given a boost in 1857 by establishing universities at Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. Finally, Anglicist prevailed over Orientalist. For missionaries, it opened the gates for proselytization, proselytization. Proselytization, what does that mean? Hallelujah. Of Indians. British wanted to inculcate a spirit of inquiry, spirit of loyalty, not inquiry, spirit of loyalty among the Indians. This they wanted through English education. The native youth was brought into contact with a body of thought which openly questioned many of his fundamental assumptions, upon which the fabric of traditional values rested. Are you understanding it? What?
The same Renaissance which happened in the 17th order period, like questioning the religious texts, same Renaissance from that, right?
Like they are being accustomed to the English education, the native youth, the Indian youth, the young people. Now they see their own Indian traditions with contempt. Right? I remember this Sabrimala judgment. Many people cheered it. What is the status of Sabrimala right now? Sub judice. The entire doctrine has gone for a judicial review to a larger bench. Do you know this? So it will be very interesting to hear the quote. And many people, the lawyer who brilliantly argued against the judgment, do you know about him? Jay Sai Deepak. You know, this guy speaks so well on all the issues. Of course, he has his own limitations, but he was speaking, and there was this lady who got up and said, I am a Brahmin, I am a woman, I don't understand why this was so. So he just asked, ma'am, just tell me one thing. The thing that you are favoring and the thing that you are not favoring, do you understand it or not? So why it is prohibited, do you know this? Any dharmic commentary that you have read, compilation that you have come across, read about it, heard about it from the primary sources? Why women are not allowed? What is the reason for it? As explained in the text that you are calling manipulative, oppressive, regressive, whatever. She was not having the idea. So see the same thing. Here Rabindranath Tagore, you know what he said? Rabindranath Tagore, not Sabrimala, during these times, he said that I am seeing lot of people are eager to debate without knowing anything. This was from Rabindranath Tagore, that they want to have an opinion but they don't have facts, they don't have knowledge. This was Dhanwantari Tagore, because something you pick and choose from many places, and then you start questioning the age old wisdom. Of course there were certain repressive elements in that, no doubt about that, but on the basis of it, which was actually a contamination, you start rejecting the entire body, right? So this became very prevalent. Again, one of the reasons for the revolt. People are seeing that the next generation is being destroyed like this. They are disowning what is ours. Okay, write it. In Calcutta, in 1825, a society for translating European sciences, Society for Translating European Sciences was set up. Later on, in 1838, a Society for Acquisition of General Knowledge was set up. Let us meet after lunch, okay? Lunch break I am taking. Huh? Okay. Just a minute, I'll answer this, then we'll take a break. Arey, screen is not clear because I have already sorted this. I think it is all right. PDF will be sent in the group. Yes. Acha, how different is Portuguese evangelism from English version? See, Portuguese one was more brutal. You go to Goa, you will see it. Anyone who has been there? And Portuguese one was more brutal, and they were like Portuguese were confined to few areas. Now, it was adverse for the Portuguese Empire in the areas where they were actually operating. Very firm control. No one or nothing could intrude into that. English had a very clear-cut understanding that this is rest of the India is our playground. This part is yours. The locals were subdued, converted, forcefully killed in masses, and the English version was a little more accommodative because English had something to fear. What? The empire was at stake. What is at stake for Portuguese? Even if in time kind of revolts, Portuguese can easily crush that. It was confined to a particular small territory, which was very easy and that had seas. So how long it would take for the army to travel through seas? The enforcement would already arrive. They already had their armed camps there. So they were not very much concerned. British were little more accommodative. British, William Bentinck was very British were are you sure you want to abandon sati? Imagine something as regressive as sati pratha. The woman is supposed to burn on the pyre of the husband, right? And in those times, many girls of very tender age, 12, 13-year-old, married to people like 50-year-olds or 60-year-old. The 60, 80-year-old having 15-year-old bride. The 80-year-old already in grace period kind of thing, right? You see, the radioactivity has surpassed more than half-life, right? So he will extinguish. Probably कितने दिन चलेगा यार? कछुआ थोड़ी है. Tortoise have a life of. तो ब्रिटिश टाइम में इंसान कितना 100 at best, right? And the girl is still a 20-year-old would be 40-year-old, and when it's a very regressive, and she's supposed to burn herself on the pyre of the husband. So these things, Britishers were shocked to see these things, and many a times women were forced by the relatives that no, you should be sati now, your husband is dead. So Britishers were hell shook by these things. So when they wanted, the authorities asked that, are you sure you want to reform these things? Because these illiterates will come firing at us. इनको मारो पीटो गाली दो, इनका राज्य कब्जा कर लो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. इनके रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिसेस में घुसोगे तो ये फिर कन्फ्रंट करते हैं. What's that? So Bentinck said, I am 100% sure I want to do this. And of course Raja Ram Mohan Roy will study these things later on. He also lobbied with a lot and बहुत सारी चीज़ें हुई. तो these things were happening simultaneously. British थोड़ा सा conservative approach लेके चलते थे. When this Greece cartridge thing emerged, then British ने not made much of an that was needed at that time to allay these fears. But the commanding officer used to address the soldiers that no, nothing like that. Portuguese would have said, eat that. Okay, they were not concerned. So British tried to be a bit more accommodative during those times and clearly drew a distinction that this is not where we are trying to go. Okay, this is where we are. I thought some creature came or what. So this is the only difference that was there. Anything else? No, Magna Carta had not much of an influence. Magna Carta was long back. And what? Yes.
The existing government, Portuguese were much more aristocratic, so that are affected
Were more aristocratic, so?
then so could that have affected more
How exactly?
Since they were more aristocratic, they believed in much more hierarchical systems. So they wanted to separate.
And British were more democratic, less of. But see, the area which Portuguese governed would be too small a size to conclude these things. If they were at least occupying a decent amount of territory, then we would have analyzed and concluded what you are saying. Whether they, when they are just in such a small piece of land, Goa, so they could get away with everything, right? The comparative analysis would happen only when when do you compare? When there is something which there has to be two pole, right? At least which could match each other. That was not the case. So no need to go into these things. Not at all important. See you all after the lunch.